What's up out there? Good evening. This is Ice-T, and tonight, welcome to Ice-T's Guide to Blaxploitaion movies. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some of the movies from the 70s. These movies were the violent ones about pimps, hustlers, drug dealers, and these are the ones that they call Blaxploitaion movies. Now, right now in critical circles, they won't give any credit to these old films, but as far as I'm concerned, these are some of the best movies that were ever made. Hold up for 1 second. Oh. You know what I'm saying? These movies are what made me, you know? And as far as I'm concerned, these movies are as pertinent as they were 20 years ago, right now today, you know? So kick back, enjoy it, and I'm going to take you on a walk through the wild side of Blaxploitaion with Ice-T. Chill. Now, prior to the Blaxploitaion movies, the only portrayals of black people in movies were that of slaves or butlers or somebody's cleaning lady or some low form of human being, you know, somebody that would just dance for a nickel, you know what I'm saying? Just terrible. And these Blaxploitaion movies were the first movies where we ever got to carry guns and we were detectives or we drove in nice cars or, you know, wore nice finds, you know what I'm saying? Got fly, we got hats, we got our hair done, we had jewelry on. And to a lot of people, this still wasn't a proper portrayal of black people. But to me, it was a step up from getting whooped. Now, the film that's credited to being the first Blaxploitaion film is Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Now, this was the first time you'd ever seen a black person in a movie beat the system, and it was just a totally different genre in film.
Did I see Sweetback as a political film? Those are terminologies that was slapped on afterwards. I saw Sweetback as what I felt like saying. Now, I never analyzed, when I hit somebody in the mouth, I don't analyze, is this a political statement or is somebody just on my ass?
Well, Melvin Van Peebles becomes a folk hero in the 70s. Here he was a man who worked outside the Hollywood system to do his movie. I think he shot it in like about 19 days or so on this budget of $500,000. And so he very much becomes this kind of figure. The idea is that he's like his hero. He can do it, and he can outwit the white man at his own game.
You keep the faith in me, and you my man. You my favorite man. Can you take it, baby?
Well, I financed it as any normal executive. I lied, I cheated, I stole, I made promises I didn't keep. I did all the usual.
Come on, girl.
We on down to the bump.
I got the devil in me.
Sweetback let Hollywood know that there was this black audience out there that didn't want to see Sidney Poitier wanting to marry this white girl.
If one of you young ladies would like to step up and try this gentleman, I'm sure you'll find him more than lively.
There was an audience waiting for this, and particularly an audience during a period when, you know, the idea of cultural separatism is very much there and getting back to your roots. And so Van Peebles proved this, that you can have a new kind of hero who will meet violence with violence. And it's not all about the idea of reconciliation.
The final statement of the movie is, a badass nigga is coming back to collect some dues. Now, at that time, the word nigga was so taboo, and, you know, anybody would say it, oh, what are you doing, and stuff like that. But to me, it was like, by Melvin Van Peebles using that word, he was saying, look, I'm black, this is how we talk, And this is how, you know, I'm going to represent the true reality of what blackness is. Now, after Sweet Sweetback broke the way, new movies started coming out like Shaft, you know what I'm saying? This movie had a little bit better funding. You had Richard Roundtree playing a detective, and it was a little different, you know? He's like the black James Bond.
Where are my manners? I didn't even introduce myself to you gentlemen. My name is John Shaft. Freeze.
He was still up against the system, and the white people were continuously pushing him. And he wasn't cutting any slack to anybody white in these movies, too. And, you know, the bad guys were the white people versus the blacks.
Shaft was just an excitement. This exciting-looking guy. Where he appealed to the women, he appealed to the men. And he had a noble cause. And you didn't see many films like that depicting black in that situation. The reason it was so successful is that, for one thing, it moved very well. Isaac Hayes' music didn't hurt.
It was a concept, and the concept was to have a product that was aimed directly at the black consumer market, with a black leading actor, a black director, a black composer, black editor. And I was chosen to do the music.
Richard Roundtree in Shaft, when we see him walking down the street and he's got that leather jacket on and you hear the Isaac Hayes music and the whole idea of an African-American man on tough, mean streets. He is a bad brother who's in control, because it is a cultural sign for African-American males to walk down these tough streets and have yourself together, and Richard Roundtree does do that.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man? Shaft!
Can you dig it?
And it was a very interesting movie to me because, you know, being a young black kid, you know, for the first time, I'm like, yo, I'm Shaft. You know what I'm saying? I'm Shaft. Because prior to that, we had no heroes, you know, so that was like my first hero. I had a leather suit. I wanted some leather pants, but couldn't afford them. But I mean like a leather coat. And I was running around trying to swing on ropes like Shaft, you know. Shaft was bad, mother.
You feel like you want to make love under the stars above. Love.
Now, you got to remember, before the black exploitation movies, black men were very asexual, meaning you never seen us in any sexual acts, you know. Sidney Poitier, people like that, they never been around a woman, you know what I'm saying? And finally in these films, the black men were getting the women and they was laying it to them, and it was very, ooh, girl. The black girls were very sexy in these movies too, and you keep rubbing my hand like that, we gonna have to yell cut.
First things first.
With movies like Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song and Shaft, the idea is that the black man has a penis and he's going to use it. And tied into that, again, is this idea of strength and power. And sometimes when we see the films from that period, we feel that the whole business of black male sexuality is overdone or overstated. I mean, these guys not only can, you know, stomp down Whitey, but they can bed their woman and another woman at the same time. And it can be a woman who's black or white. So the idea is that the black male can take care of himself out on the streets and in the bedroom. And sexuality is tied in with the idea of power and self-control and assertion.
Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why.
Now, another movie that was really important as far as in my career definitely was Superfly. And this was the movie that came out real early. I was real young, and I was like, wow, you know. Now, the difference between Superfly and Shaft was Superfly was a street hustler. Superfly was a drug dealer who was trying to get out of the game. And the part of the film that got me was, at the end of the day, Superfly got away. So it was like a drug dealer who became a hero. But he kind of like reflected the plight of a lot of black people at the time that didn't necessarily want to do wrong, but thought that wrong was the only way they could get out of this situation.
I'm a hustler. I sold cocaine.
I didn't think you sold pencils. Maybe I ought to get back to the street. Back to the funk.
Yeah, well, I done been in the funk. I ain't never going back there.
Superfly is like my idol, you know what I'm saying? Because he was the first, you know, guy. He had his hair combed back and like a perm. It was Ron O'Neal, and the clothes were so incredible. As you can see, still looks good, baby. You know what I'm saying? And one thing about being black and being out in the street and hustling, you got to remember, when you're on the streets and you don't have anything, all you really have is what you have on your body. So a lot of the stuff was over the top, you know what I'm saying? You only own a car and one ring and one chain. So this is it, baby. This is what you got.
The most American thing about these films, and the most American thing about Superfly particularly, is his aggressiveness, is the gunplay involved, is the sense of self-assertion. Rugged individualism, as they would say in America. You may think that these are terrible values and we shouldn't actually be espousing them, but they're the most American of values. And I don't think that you can posit that black people would exist in America for 300, 400 years and not be as influenced by the values of the country as anybody else here. Why is The Godfather acceptable and not Shaft?
Well, you know, there's an explosion that after these three movies, Sweet Sweet Black's Badass Song, Shaft, and Superfly, they make money, and the industry, you know, it just snaps the industry to attention. And the idea, of course, is that there is an audience out there. It's been said that in the early to mid-70s, the only segment of the movie-going population in this country, the only segment that was going consistently was the black segment of the movie-going public. So the African-American audience at that time was so hungry for heroes in cinema, and so hungry for someone who was going to articulate anger or rage, a sense of disaffiliation, that, you know, the audience was ready to take just about anything.
Now, there was one guy right now that I would consider him like the king of black exploitation films in his own. This was Rudy Ray Moore. He had started out being a comedian. He made lots of party records. These are records that white people ain't never gonna see. These are records that we would just buy out of the liquor store. And when you get to the liquor store, you'd see these records, and there'd be a whole bunch of butt-naked women and Rudy Ray Moore in the bed with a wig on, doing some crazy stuff. And he rapped under the name of Dolomite.
Dolomite is my name, and rapping and tapping is my game. I'm the one that killed Monday and whooped Tuesday and put Wednesday in the hospital and called up Thursday to tell Friday not to burst Saturday on Sunday.
I'll stop this long-haired, sea-sapping, dilapidated sheriff now. Cause he just wanna follow me anyhow. He think he's bad and ain't got no class. I'm gonna rock this shotgun up his motherfucking ass.
My comedy is designed for adults, but I call my humor ghetto expressions in a form of art.
And this is what I call a nigga that always wanna get in the show. This is the kind of nigga that'll fart in a bathtub and turn around and bite the bubble.
These are some of the maddest movies of all time, but as a black actor, he's the greatest. That's what I'm saying.
So y'all don't believe I jumped, huh? So watch this good shit.
He did karate that was so out of sync with the camera. It was like he would talk karate and he would make all these moves, and then when he would start doing the karate, they'd speed it up. and it was funny.
You should have stayed down there the first time.
There was a black writer back in the day that wrote a lot of books that was the inspiration for a lot of these films back in the day. He basically was the person who I molded my entire career around. His name was Iceberg Slim. That's where I got my name. Ice-T is short for Iceberg. Now, he was a real pimp and a real hustler out in the streets. But at one point in his career, he decided he was going to write books. And the books were so real. They were about street life and hustling and drugs. But the difference about these books was he always would show you the hard side of the street life. And he was a person that really inspired me to not want to totally live out this gangster fantasy, but learn to write about it.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley. I'm your doctor when in need, want some coke, have some weed.
Since I write about the street a lot, I like to give proper credence to the humanity of underworld people. Lots of writers dehumanize. If you don't believe it, watch some of your stories on TV when they touch on street people. They dehumanize them. They're not human. So the prime purpose and focus of all of my writing is not to glorify street people, but to give them a full dimension as human beings.
They were stories about black hustlers mostly. Iceberg Slim thing was he was a pimp, and he had all these theories and game plans for controlling the world, and basically through women, manipulating words, wordplay, con games. Very big con man. So Iceberg Slim sort of represented sort of an older tradition of hustling.
Being rich and black means something, man.
When you got nothing and you want everything, you gotta get to be the Mac. If there's one thing tougher than being the Mac, it's staying the Mac.
The nitty-gritty of the pimp game is that after you get them, you have got to be able to anticipate all the feminine wiles. But back in the days when I started, you really had to know what you were doing. You had to know how to control and how to operate a stable, how to dazzle, befuddle, bewitch, entrance, and hypnotize a woman. And not only one woman, but 8, 9, and to keep them in harmonious effort. And if you think that isn't a job, my friend, you ask any married man.
Back in the days, like, the way they treated women was totally archaic. You know what I'm saying? They had no respect for women. You know what I'm saying? They had women, doing their nails was okay. You know what I'm saying? But little other things, they would always, every woman was bitch, hoe, this, that, and the other. But once again, it was a reference from the ghetto. But then after a while, Tamara Dobson and Pam Grier came out, and they was basically kicking much ass. And me, I could take it just as well as I can give it. When people look back at those films, people have said that those were like the first feminists in the film. I believe that these were just a way of black films trying to counter a lot of the sexism that was coming from the males.
The Big Birdcage, a strange and brutal world of men who are only half men and women who are more than all woman.
Where do you want to be buried, nigger? And it's Miss Nigger to you.
I think that they represented those sort of superwoman figures of Tamara Dobson and Pam Grier, this sort of personification of black female power. I mean, it's almost like, again, another kind of comic book kind of caricature, but it really, again, had a lot more to do with how white people perceive black women, which is embodying this sort of out-of-the-ordinary sexuality. I mean, both of these images, that of the black male stud and the hot black mama, all come out of a fiction of white racist imagination.
In these films, women also are very much often degraded, or their experiences are distorted. And the whole nature of the hero's triumph, after a while, it becomes trite, because it's just a repetition of what has gone, what is the sort of the form that's been set for us by these three early films: Sweet Sweet Black's Badass, Long Shaft, and Superfly.
He's black. He's brutal. He's boss. Fred Williamson is boss nigga.
It seems almost like every other week or so there's a new black-oriented film, but sometimes it seems as if the same movie is being done and is being released. And then the movies, many are cheaply made. They're the basic old formulas, now done with African-American actors or actresses, or directed by whites or produced by whites.
He's bad. He's mean. He's a loving machine. He's mad. He's mean. He's a killing machine. Let him give you a black shampoo.
The reason they call these other films exploitation movies was because they were done by white directors, white producers. And a lot of times when you're in a white film, you get this, like, act more black. You know, can we make them afros bigger? And stuff like that. So in retrospect, people look back and say, well, the white people took the worst part of what black is and made these films.
You're gonna have to shoot me right in my face, Mr. Black.
His rage was the illness of the times. Hassled by his soul brothers, with his mother dying, he can only escape to the moon. When a black man bears his soul and tells his story, Top of the Heap, starring Christopher St. John, whom you last saw in Shaft.
There's this whole audience that was hungry to see movies, but the movies got worse and worse and worse and made with less and less care as time went on, until finally they ran it in the ground.
This is the year of the Black Gestapo, the new masters.
We got a new deal now. You shoot one of my soldiers, and I shoot one of your gorillas.
The Black Gestapo, victory through vengeance for the new masters, rated R.
That's why it gets the name that it has, Blaxploitaion, in that the audience, the black audience, has a real need for heroic, assertive, aggressive figures, and figures that have a cultural definition.
Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde.
But the audience has that need, but the movies don't necessarily answer the needs, and certainly not in realistic terms. The movies touch on the need. So the audience eventually, by 75, the Blaxploitation era is really over.
I'm so glad I've got my own, so glad that I can see my life's a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me. I'm so glad I've got my own, so glad that I can see my life's a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me.
It's a sad day these films died, you know, and it's still hard today to get anybody to say something good about these films, you know. One thing I like to say is that I hope you guys got something out of this tonight. You know, these are the films I grew up on. These are part of black culture. All you hip-hop fans out there, this is where it all comes from, you know what I'm saying? And never turn around and say something is negative till you truly understand it, you know what I'm saying? This is a time in black film history that has to be remembered positively, because this is what started us. This was our first chance. Can't knock it. So peace. I hope you enjoy yourself. And in the words of Sweet Sweet Back, you know, all badass niggas are gonna come back to claim they dues, you know what I'm saying? I'm out of here. Keep them videos rolling, you know what I'm saying? Where is Dolomite? Dolomite's in the studio. I gotta go. Peace. Y'all stay in here.
All I want is some peace of mind. With a little love I'm trying to find. This could be such a beautiful world with a wonderful